corruption and bribery of members of the legislature erode the foundation of Indian parliamentary democracy. It is destructive of the aspirational and deliberative ideals of the Constitution and creates a polity which deprives citizens of a responsible, responsive, and representative democracy. Under Section 7 of the PC Act, the mere obtaining, accepting, or attempting to obtain an undue advantage with the intention to act or forbear from acting in a certain way is sufficient to complete the offense. It is not necessary that the act for which the bribe is given be actually performed. The first explanation to the provision further strengthens such an interpretation when it expressly states that the obtaining, accepting, or attempting to obtain an undue advantage shall itself constitute an offense, even if the performance of a public duty by a public servant has not been improper. Therefore, the offense of a public servant, being bribed, is pegged to receiving or agreeing to receive the undue advantage, and not the actual performance of the act for which the undue advantage is obtained. Indeed, to read Articles 1052 and 194.2 in the manner proposed in the majority judgment results in a paradoxical outcome. Such an interpretation results in a situation where a legislator is rewarded with immunity when they accept a bribe and follow through by voting in the agreed direction. On the other hand, a legislator who agrees to accept a bribe but may eventually decide to vote independently will be prosecuted. Such an interpretation belies not only the text of Articles 105 and 194, but also the purpose of conferring parliamentary privileges on members of the legislature. Finally, before concluding, we hold that elections to the Rajya Sabha fall within the remit of Article 194.2. We hold, distinct from the marginal note, in the text of the provision, there is a conscious use of the term legislature instead of the House of Legislature at appropriate places. It is evident from the drafting of the provision that the two terms have not been used interchangeably. The first limb of Article 194.2 pertains to anything said or any vote given by him in the legislature or any committee thereof. However, in the second limb, the phrase used is in respect of the publication by or under the authority of a house of such a legislature of any report, paper, votes, or proceedings. There is a clear departure from the term legislature, which is used in the first limb, to use the term house of such legislature in the second limb of the provision. It is clear, therefore, that the provision creates a distinction between the legislature as a whole in the first limb and the house of the same legislature in the second limb. The elections to the Rajya Sabha conducted under Article 80, as referred to above, may also take place when the House is not in session, as seats may fall vacant when the Legislative Assembly of the state is not in session. However, the elections remain a part of the functioning of the legislature and take place within the presence of the Legislative Assembly. Similarly, the elections for the President of India under Article 54 and for the Vice President under Article 66 may also take place in Parliament or the state legislative assemblies when they are not in session. However, they are an integral part of the powers and responsibilities of elected members of the Parliament and the state legislative assemblies. The vote for such elections is given in the legislature or Parliament, which is sufficient to invoke the protection of the first limb of Articles 1052 and 194.2. Such processes are significant to the functioning of the legislature and in the broader structure of parliamentary democracy. There appears to be no restriction, either in the text of Article 1052 or Article 194.2, which pushes such elections outside of the protection provided by the provisions. Further, the purpose of parliamentary privilege to provide legislators with a platform to speak and vote without fear is equally applicable to elections to the Rajya Sabha and elections for the President and the Vice President as well. So we have overruled the judgment in P.V. Narasimha Rao.